Hello, dear friends, lovely audience. Welcome to the East-West Show. Jack Chow on the East-West with the G&E TV. At this very moment, as we speak, our President Donald Trump is in Beijing, China. Probably he will meet with the President of China, Mr. Xi Jinping, at this very moment. Or right now they're sleeping. I don't know. I don't think they are meeting probably tomorrow. We are talking about to give a little comment about what to expect. With me today is my good friend, my new friend, Mr. Keith Fink. He is a former professor for UCLA for law, teaching laws, and he is one of the top, I would say, very top attorneys for work comp laws. So, Mr. or Professor Fink, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Actually, it's employment law, not workers' comp law.
Employment law?
Yes.
Okay, see. Okay, anyway, as we started, when we say these two presidents of two countries putting together, especially when we have a common problem with North Korea, what do you hope?
Well, I was very excited when Nixon opened up China to the United States some over 40 years ago. Because my second home is actually in Macau. And I love China, and I love Chinese culture, and I love the Chinese people. And if more Americans were exposed to the wonders of China, we would all be enriched. So yes, I'm hopeful that President Trump has a good meeting. We certainly have a unity of interest against the North Koreans. But on a larger picture, yes, I'm very hopeful that our relationship will continue to grow with China.
Mm-hmm. Now everybody talks about the fact that China and the United States, if put together their efforts, would probably bend the wish or whatever, the will of Kim Jong-un of North Korea with his nuclear programs. Do you think that's a hope, that's a legit hope?
Well, the U.S. could bend North Korea in a second if we wanted to, without fear of incurring the wrath of China. So we don't need, the United States doesn't need Chinese assistance in squashing North Korea. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you mean militarily?
Correct, correct.
Yeah, but I mean, diplomatically, do you think that U.S. and China will work together this time?
I think we have to. You can't, no country can deal with a terrorist, no non-terrorist country can deal with a terrorist. He is a terrorist. He's not rational. So yes, we have a common, common interest. We have a common enemy here.
Mm-hmm. Common interest with common enemy. We hope the two presidents to, right now in Beijing will work out something that is to the best hope. To me, the worst thing on earth would be that U.S.-China do not get along. And the best thing would be on the contrary, that U.S.-China put their hands together, well, to get something done, get some job done. Especially at this moment, the North Korean nuclear program is the big job. We want to get a job done. Thank you for that comment, sir. All right. Okay, now, to start the show, I want to go with you the fact, and you told me that you were born here all the way, about half of your life, you never leave a circle of 5 or 10 miles. And once you decided to go, you went all the way to Macau, right? Quite a life.
Yes, well, everybody's an immigrant in the United States, so I come from a European background, and my work ethic was from my parents, is this: you study as hard as you can. And I went to UCLA. I was a debate champion for 3 years at UCLA, and then after UCLA I taught a little high school, and then I went to law school, made sure I graduated high in my law school class, and then I worked very hard as a lawyer. And so I was raised as you don't take a lot of time off, you don't travel all over the world. Maybe when you're 65 and you're 70 you retire. I was so my whole life was pretty much just living in California. I grew up in Bel Air, was a pretty nice area. And a friend of mine, when I was in my 40s, I'm giving away my age, in my 40s, my best friend, who had been doing business in Hong Kong, he told me, you're missing out, you absolutely have to come to Hong Kong. And I said to my friend, I can't do this. I have to take a week off of work, and the ticket, because I only fly business, because getting older, it's hard to fly economy, and the ticket's going to be $7,000, and I have been successful in my business, and $7,000 is not that much money. He said, don't be silly. I'll buy you the ticket anyway. You absolutely have to come. So I took 7 days off work. I went to Hong Kong. I fell in love with Hong Kong, although now, having been all over China and all over Asia, Hong Kong's not so exciting. It's pretty much like San Francisco. But I went over to Macau when it was just a small Portuguese colony with the cobblestone streets. It didn't have all the hotels, and I fell in love with the people and the culture of Macau. And so that's how kind of my life changed a large part, because I stopped working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just on my business. And whenever my teaching obligations, because that's from my heart, my teaching, not that my heart isn't in fighting hard for my clients, but my heart is in helping young people. And whenever my class would end, I would be on the midnight Cathay Pacific flight. I have to fly into Hong Kong, because you can't fly directly to Macau, it's so small. You're flying either directly to Hong Kong, or I would go on EVA Airlines to Taiwan directly into Macau.
I see. By looking at your business card, you base out yourself Los Angeles dot Macau, meaning that you're flying back and forth all the time, right?
At least 10 times a year, yes.
At least 10
but for
times
me,
a year,
it's for those people who know how, where Macau is. It's hard. It's planes, trains, and automobiles. I have to fly into Hong Kong, and then when you get into Hong Kong early, there's no direct ferry. So then I have to go take a train from Hong Kong to Central, and before I can get to the ferry, and then I have to take a cab, and then I have to take a ferry, and then I finally land in Macau, and then I have to take a taxi. Hopefully that my Cantonese is okay, because I speak more Mandarin than Cantonese, and then I finally get to my apartment. But so for me now, it's easy, but for most folks, it's pretty a daunting task.
I know in Los Angeles you're doing laws, right? And in Macau, what do you do?
我买卖房地产. I buy and sell real estate.
Oh, I see.
That was my attempt in Mandarin to say the same thing. But,
I see,
yeah,
I see.
So my accent isn't too good on my mind.
Not far away from your law practice, is it?
I do some real estate litigation work, but yes, I would say it's far away. I have also real estate investments in the United States, but I've been more successful in Macau. Now Macau's tried to institute various laws for, I don't know, I wouldn't call myself a speculator, but for foreign businessmen like myself, they've made it a little more difficult. But that's primarily what I do.
I see, okay. How do you mentioned also the fact that you went to Dalian yourself and Shenyang?
I did. Actually, my friend is, I have many friends. My friend actually came to the show. He wanted to meet you. I said, my friend and interviewer is a Dalian Ren, and she is from Dalian, although she's very proud to be from Los Angeles. So she took me, we had a business meeting. This person from Shenyang, who is my friend, he owns Wenquan. So we went to see his the hot springs business, and I got to go to the 918 Museum. I did many fun things in Shenyang, enjoyed and then we went over to Dalian, and as I told you, Dalian is a beautiful city with unbelievable seafood. So I had a great time.
Thank you for saying that. I was born in Shandong, Yantai, across the ocean, little Bay Area. And most of my part was in Dalian, my early life. So Dalian is never a strange town to me. I consider Dalian and Yantai both my hometowns. Right? Thank you for loving my hometown. By looking all over China, by traveling all over China, I believe you have witnessed how deeply U.S. and China are kind of like merged into each other. Is that a fact or some wrong take?
I don't see that take at all.
You don't think that at all?
Not at all.
So you're not seeing that U.S., China, I mean, business-wise, got into any kind of connection that they cannot tear away from each other. I see lots of McDonald's or Pizza Huts all over China.
Okay, well, you see that over. I mean, you can see that in India. You can see that everywhere.
I see. All right. Okay. So that doesn't mean that U.S. and China has any kind of reason
Well,
to.
when you're saying, look, when I go all over China, I don't see many Americans in China. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One is the difficulty in getting from the United States to China. I mean, I explained the arduous task for me to get to Macau, but just it's 16 hours. Americans don't have. You either get 1 or 2 weeks vacation time. To spend a day or 2 days flying, that's difficult. Second, it's a lot easier for Americans to go to Europe, okay? People look the same, they speak the same language, people just feel more comfortable going to Europe. For me, I'm somewhat of an iconoclast. I feel comfortable in Asia. But for most Americans, it's uncomfortable. You stand out. People don't speak the language. You know, in most of the places I go, you know, sure, in a big city in Shanghai, you can stay in a 5-star hotel and people speak the language. But places I go, if I take from Zhuhai to Guilin and I go to Guilin, there's going to be very minimal English spoken. So it is difficult for a traveler. So I don't see. So first off, I don't see many Americans. You mentioned some major franchises, but overall, there's not. You know, Guilin is an example. There's one there's one Starbucks in Guilin. So you know, an American, you're getting jittery all over. You know, I need to have my American coffee. So I don't see American businesses really immersed mainly. I go to a beautiful place like Hangzhou. I can't even think I eat at Grandma's. I think it is a restaurant I like in Hangzhou. But when I'm in Hangzhou walking around West Lake, I don't see any trappings of the West. So on my own personal experience, I don't see it. That's one of the things I like. And please, China, keep your own cultures. No, this was a big mistake that China made in Tiananmen. In the palace, they let in Starbucks coffee. The Chinese people were rightly furious at that, and then they changed that. But you don't strip away.
Starbucks in China is now starting to sell teas.
Yeah, okay, well, that's smart. Yeah, okay, well, I think that's really disingenuous,
but
yes.
in Macau, do you see the same Chinese that you travel in China all over?
Well, okay, now we're getting into, you know, look, you're getting in Macau, you know, Hong Kong people don't like mainland people. So you're going to say, I think Macau people are a little more forgiving vis-a-vis mainland. So am I answering your direct question? You know, when we're talking about Hong Kong and Macau, I mean, these two SARs, they really are a world away to a certain extent from mainland China. You know that. I mean, I just think as a human being, and this upsets me, just like if you're born in El Paso, Texas, or you're born in Juarez, I say this, you won the sperm lottery. If you ask anybody, you'd rather be born in the United States than in Mexico. But we're all the same people. It is the same thing. If you're born in Hong Kong and you're born in Shenzhen, you're no better because you were born in Hong Kong than Shenzhen. This is just something that upsets me just as a human being when people think they're better than somebody else just because where they're born. So your question is, I think Macau people are different than mainland people, the way they think. Hong Kong people are definitely their own animals. And that's not even dealing with the democracy, which is so fervent in Hong Kong, not so much in Macau.
I agree with that. We're all human race. We're all human race. We were born equal. Let me say, my dear audience, this is my friend, Mr. Keith Fink. Mr. Keith Fink was a former professor at the UCLA. He's now practicing law. He is also, he deals with real estate litigation and lots of experiences of international traveling to Europe, to China, to Hong Kong, to Macau, and of course domestically into the United States. That's your camera, guy.
Okay.
You look at that camera, not that camera.
Okay.
Sure. Action. Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show. We started with a little conversation between me and my good friend, Mr. Keith Fink, a lawyer, one of the top lawyers for the United States, talking about his travel experiences with Europe, in China, in Hong Kong, Macau, and a little comparison about traffic and everything of different places, and talking about email connection or stuff, so on and so forth. Generally, I have questions regarding the wage and hour pays or salaries questions, I may ask you if, I wonder if I may please?
There's nothing you can't ask me. I will
All right.
always give you a direct answer, and if I don't know the answer, I'll
All
tell
right,
you I
very
don't
good.
know.
I have a bunch of friends who are being sued. They are, of course, business owners who are being sued for the fact that their employees are not having lunch within 5 hours when they started work. So, to what kind of law does that apply, please?
Well, I say every business owner above their office should have this placard that says, "No good deed goes unpunished." And so this is the way it is trying to run a business in California in the United States. Anytime an employee is let go or has a disagreement with an owner, they're going to sue. And our laws are so complex, they will find some wrong possibly to file a lawsuit. So your question is a very good one. This is one of the picayune laws that we have in California that many businesses don't know about. So you must give your employee within the first 5 hours, you must give them a rest break of 10 minutes, and you must give them a meal break. And the meal break just can't be a meal break, it must be an uninterrupted meal break. So you can't just simply say you have a meal break, but force the person, let's say Jack, this person that's filming us today is working for you, and you say, sure, you get 30-minute break, but you have to eat while you're doing this filming segment. That is not an uninterrupted break. So your friends, unfortunately, if they didn't have a policy in writing that everybody got that told them that you get your break, and they didn't get these breaks, they have a valid claim. Now your friend, had they called me, I would have said, hey, maybe your employees don't want to have the meal breaks. And then what we should do is we should have them sign something called a waiver. You can have a waiver of the first meal period. So unfortunately, I don't know all the circumstances surrounding your friend's claim, but if they didn't afford the employees their meal break within the first 5 hours and they didn't have a waiver, then they have legal exposure. And if you think these things are small, they are not. I sometimes refer to this as a tail wagging the dog. It's not simply what you owe the employee for the hour of their wage. There's all sorts of statutory penalties. So every pay period that these violations occur, there's statutory penalties of thousands of dollars that just stack up week after week after week. And of course, in every lawsuit, there's the same winner, and that's the lawyers. And so even if you wanted to resolve these cases and pay the people for the time, their lunch time and the penalties, you gotta pay the beast, and that's the lawyers. And the reason the legislature put these laws in effect is to encourage people to follow the law. If you don't follow the law and there's small violations, we need lawyers to file these lawsuits. But legal fees in these matters can be hundreds of thousands of dollars if your friend didn't give a number of people lunch breaks. So this small lunch break issue can wipe out a business owner. This is, I'm glad that you raised this issue, and we could talk to some of your listening audience about this. So meal break and rest break issues are significant in the state of California.
Of course, laws are laws. We can, once there's a law, we can do nothing about but respect, right?
No, that's not right. Not in this country, no.
Okay.
The beauty of this country, we can change the laws. If you think that laws are incorrectly decided, unjust, or outdated, you can go to your legislator and you can seek the change by your legislators and vote out of office those legislators who are not, respecting, the rational view of the people. So in many of these areas, there's significant pushback by the people to change the laws. I mean, how about, take for example, you didn't ask a business owner with the Americans with Disability Act. So your friends, maybe if they have that restaurant where they're worried about that wage and hour claim, there are people that are in wheelchairs, that there's a cottage industry. They are making a fortune getting in their wheelchair, going into your restaurant, and they know the laws, finding out when they go into your bathroom that you don't have 2 rolls of paper or the bar is 1 inch lower. How about this law? You give a safe harbor. That means if there is a deficiency in having your structure comply with what the law requires, the business owner, once they get notice of this, has 90 days to make a correction. And then if they don't make the correction, well, okay, then they should suffer the consequences of that. To me, that's a rational law. Clint Eastwood tried to fight on this many years ago. It was unsuccessful. He's pushing for a similar law like this. So that's kind of my short thing is no, we don't have, sure, we respect the laws, but we can fight for change in the laws.
All right. How often did it happen in history that the laws are changed because there's rebounds like this?
All over. I mean, there was an 1882 Exclusion Act for Chinese. I mean, Chinese are well assimilated, and we have all sorts of laws that prohibit discrimination.
That's federal law. We're talking about California laws
okay, well,
being overturned by voters, by constituents. Any examples, successful examples?
It happens all the time. I mean, we add various provisions to, if we're talking about wage and hour laws now, we add various provisions to our labor laws. We add some, we take some away. I know we're going to get into this hour on a topic, a little different topic on sexual assault on campuses. People wanted to, so the federal law was taken away. The people in the state wanted to import the federal law of Title IX into state law. Governor Brown, who happens to be liberal, vetoed that. So, I mean, they're innumerable.
All right, very good. The wage and hour laws includes a situation. I probably have a good example. I have a friend named Houston, David Houston. He is a restaurant owner up in Pasadena. And he is sued for lots of money because those employees of his, on way out to their lunch, on the lunch break, they are kind of sometimes stopped by incoming customers asking, where's the ladies' room, where's the men's room? So this very employee might turn over to point to the back. So make a right turn to the bottom or whatever, something like that. And each time asked, it takes about 2 or 3 seconds. And then over the years, over the days, over the month and everything, accumulated over time, that claims to be not paid. Do you think that is also included in the hours and the pay laws?
Yes, but I'm not following exactly what Mr. Houston's policy is. I remember I told you it has to be a 30-minute uninterrupted break. So if a person is just standing like a statue and eating the lunch, and folks can come and say, where is the bathroom? Well, that's not a 30-minute uninterrupted lunch break. So he should have some kind of mechanism, whether there's a lunchroom, let them go outside if there's walking distance to a restaurant. So he should have some policy in place. But yes, if he has them in a location where they have to field questions from customers, then it's not an uninterrupted break. If there was a de minimis, one instance where one question was asked, no, I don't think he would violate the law. Now, we haven't gotten into, I mean, you asked me, overtime. Overtime, is Mr. Houston got overtime problems?
Yeah, probably overtime, yeah. I don't know the difference between the hourly pay and overtime, the argument in between.
Well, okay. Well,
he's sued for
you can sue for everything, but this is a problem in running a restaurant. Look, well, our average restaurant, let's say, Mr. Houston, if it's an Asian restaurant, you're not serving breakfast, so it probably opens at 11:30, and it probably closes at 10 o'clock. So if you're going to have a worker, right, and maybe you shut down at 2:30 because there's no business between 2:30 and 5. So you've got one issue is what do you do in that gap between 2:30 and 5? If you just tell your people, oh, you can go sleep, and Mr. Houston has a nice fancy cot in the back and go sleep, do you have to pay people for that time? This is a split shift issue. So you do have to give some compensation for folks that are working that entire time. You then take that full day, let's just say you take that day between 11:30 and 10:30. Once you go over 8 hours, you're required to pay your employees time and a half. And when you go over 12 hours in a day, you have to pay your employees double time. That's expensive.
All right, okay. As a lawyer, though, okay, let's take a short moment. And when we come back, we'll continue. I'll continue to ask questions, including even Title IX. May I, please?
Sure.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to the discussion about laws about California. With me is my good friend, Mr. Keith Fink. Mr. Keith Fink is one of the top lawyers of the United States, and he focuses with workers in the hourly laws,
I'd say it's employment law, wrongful termination, harassment, discrimination.
employment laws, including harassment and discrimination. All
Yeah,
right,
wage
good.
and hour, yeah.
All right, very good. And that probably, gives me a hint that we can talk about the Feinstein case, the Harvey Feinstein?
Weinstein?
Harvey Weinstein?
Yes.
Yeah,
he's
it
mainly-
belonged to. Well, anyway, and he's being sued. Anyway, okay. Let me get back to my starting point without it being dragged away too far. So, as a lawyer yourself, though, do you think it's necessary for laws to go that strict? Because to me, it directly hits the small business, which is the backbone of the California economy.
Well, if your precise question to me is, do I think that
Yes.
we should have sexual harassment laws, I have an interesting take on that, is no, we should not. People don't realize this, but there actually was a time in this country when businesses existed and flourished without sexual harassment laws. Now, does that mean that I condone sexual harassment? Of course not, but just think about it for a minute. If your boss touches you inappropriately, does that mean you don't have legal claims without sexual harassment laws? Everybody knows the answer to that is you do have legal claims. You can sue for assault, you can sue for battery, you can sue for intentional infliction of emotional distress. There are a whole host of laws that allow you to go after conduct which has been encompassed under sexual harassment laws. This is a point we touched on earlier. Sexual harassment laws are better than these other laws because one of the components it gives a litigant is to get a truckload of money in the form of attorney's fees if you prevail on a claim. So I sort of have a heretical view. If you're asking me the broad question is, do we need sexual harassment laws? Maybe, maybe not. And going back to, should we reform sexual harassment laws? I think we should. But that could be a conversation for another day. But
Okay.
that's probably an interesting
Sounds interesting.
answer. Yes.
How about Title IX?
Title IX is a nightmare that has been, in my opinion, has been outdated on many levels. And in the instance that we're going to discuss today, should be troubling for every American. As you know, Title IX was enacted some 45 years ago. It's 37 words that guarantees students equal educational benefits, equal opportunity and educational programs for institutions that receive federal funds. And most people know about Title IX in the context of athletic programs. So for example, I went to UCLA in the early 80s. UCLA was very successful in swimming and gymnastics. In fact, they won national championships from that. Nowadays, they don't have those programs because they had to eliminate those programs in order to have some type of proportionality between males and females in athletic programs. So Title IX was born of an age when actually if you looked at the demographics of a university, you wouldn't see that many females. Nowadays, if you actually look at the opportunities, I know at UCLA, for example, in the department I taught, there's more females than males. So I think that the reason for the law, the reason back then, while it may have been valid, doesn't apply today. Now, the topic that we're going to discuss now has to deal with Title IX in connection with sexual assault and sexual harassment proceedings. And what the controversy that sprung up, Betsy DeVos, the new Secretary of the Department of Education, in September withdrew, there was a speech she gave at George Mason on September 7th, she withdrew two extremely controversial guidance set forth during the Obama administration. One refers to something called the Dear Colleague letter, and the second refers to questions and answers in 2014. And so why did she do this? She did this because on the one hand, you have a serious issue of sexual harassment and sexual assault, which we want to interdict on all of our campuses. We don't want anybody to feel fear of intimidation, assault, or harassment. But on the other hand, you have rights of young people accused of these types of, they're not crimes if someone's not, law enforcement is going against them, but accused of these serious offenses, to which if you are found responsible, they are life altering. you are likely going to be thrown out of the school, be labeled a rapist or a harasser, maybe not get into another school, and that will haunt you the rest of your life, your rest of your career. So the Dear Colleague letter did a number of things, the Obama administration. First, I think it was illegal in that it didn't follow the APA and allow for advice and comment before these rules went into place. But let me just tick off some of the troubling aspects which has now been rolled back by withdrawing these guidances. Number one, the burden of proof in order to determine that somebody committed an assault or harassment was lowered from clear and convincing, which is 75%, to preponderance of evidence, which is just more likely or not, 50.01%. Basically, you are presumed guilty. That's number one, and that's the biggest problem. I can just stop there on that.
Easier to get convicted.
Easy, it's relatively simple. I mean, once the complaint is made, you're already guilty because, right, you made the complaint. Well, it's more likely than not that it happened. Okay, well, that's number one. Now, remember, what she's actually done here is she's just taken away the guidance. She has now left it up to the schools to go back to the old standard or keep the current standard. And unfortunately, these liberal universities that are run by progressives that care, to me, not a whit about affording due process to students, they are ignoring the suggestion by the department. Okay, the second thing, you are not allowed an attorney in these types of proceedings. Now, how can an 18-year-old accused of, in essence, rape, sexual assault, deal with these accusations, be able to put together evidence? I can just give you an example. And this was an Asian students. They are in a world of trouble. First, because of Asian culture. Many Asian students don't tell their parents when they're accused of issues like this for fear of reprisal from or shock and outrage from their tiger mothers or their tiger parents. It's a lot more likely that Caucasian students will seek relief from their parents. So many Asian students don't go, and many Asian students at UCLA, for example, too, are here and their parents are at home. So it's difficult, and you're really not going to reach out to your parents in Shanghai and say, I've been accused of rape. So that is a problem. These students don't have the right to a lawyer. They don't have the right to get legal advice. And secondly, I do think there's an element of discrimination that goes on in these processes if you're a person that happens to be of Asian, whether that's Indian or Chinese, you are not getting the same shake as somebody who's white. So you don't have the right to cross-examine. I say you don't have a right to an attorney. The next is you don't have a right to cross-examination. Any lawyer will tell you the best engine in the search for truth is the right to cross-examine. You don't have a right to cross-examine the person that's confronting you. You don't have a right to see all the evidence that's against you. It's whatever evidence that's deemed relevant. By whom? The decision maker in this process, it's not me. It's not a lawyer. It's not a judge. Most of these, so it's somebody that the Title IX department at these universities has hired to investigate. What is their training in investigation? It's none. Some of them are trained in radical programs that presume guilt against any male in their proceedings. So you have a single investigator investigating. The old Obama requirements, there's an infamous line from the guidance that said, don't let due process get in the way of a speedy investigation. So you had all of these, and they tried to have this whole thing concluded in 60 days. There also, under the Obama guidance, was a right for the accuser, if she lost, she or he, but almost always a she, if she lost, to appeal. That violates a concept we call double jeopardy. Let me go back to this. That happened. This Asian student was so. It was. I wish he came to me. I'll give you a contrast. I wish he came to me earlier, but he came to me only after he didn't tell his parents, and he got crushed and expelled from a UC school. So one of the smoking gun pieces of evidence that the investigator concluded that the girl who was on her 18th birthday was looking to have sex with the 18th fraternity because she hadn't had sex with the 18th fraternity, and unluckily landed with this Asian student, the smoking gun that she was intoxicated and therefore couldn't consent happened to be a piece of evidence that this young 18-year-old kid gave to her. Now, what was that? It was a photograph of the two of them. All kids do these selfies nowadays. And he was admitting it to show, look at, she was smiling, she was happy, we were getting along, you know, and we were going to hook up like college students do. The investigator jumped on the fact that her face was red. And she said, aha, I got you. Her face was red, she was blushed, and that's because of the alcohol. Now this kid, he's a kid. He doesn't know how to peel back the onion. So after he lost and he came to me, I said, wait a minute, let's go look on her Facebook. She either has acne rosea, which is a form of skin disease where your face is red, or this is just her natural skin color. It took me all of 10 seconds to look at her Facebook post from when she's in high school. That's the way she always looks. Now, you would think a skilled investigator would have done that on her own, which she didn't. But if you had a lawyer, or not even a lawyer, but you know, some adult, somebody helping you with some knowledge, that student could have helped. Now, contrast that with this is another Asian student I had at a different UC campus. He was lucky enough to have a good relationship. This is an Asian American that went to his parents, and they hired me to help him through this process. The administration thought they had him because there was a text from the girl saying, you know what you did was wrong. And he didn't text back and say, what, are you kidding me? We had consensual sex. He didn't do that. So in the absence of that response, the Title IX Inquisition thought it's a tacit admission. She said what you did is wrong, and he didn't say, are you crazy? Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? He came to me, and I put together the truth. The reason why he didn't do it, this was his girlfriend. He had dated her. He knew her background, and she had suffered something that's called suicidal ideations. Somebody that in their life is considering committing suicide, you don't inflame them and push back and get in their face with that type of response. So there's a completely logical explanation, which I helped him put forward, put together the evidence that she actually had suicidal ideations, other type of instances where stuff like this had happened. I submitted documents with textbook, text messages, Facebook posts, cards she had given him. This student got off, but he was lucky. So you can't see a lawyer, but you can go to somebody for help that basically help you through the process.
He was lucky he got you. Otherwise, his life is going to end up in lots of miserable situations.
Oh, absolutely. So this has been the big issue on campuses. Students have been railroaded. Their lives have been turned upside down. They have not been afforded due process. And so Betsy DeVos rescinded these old guidance. And even our governor, who was extremely liberal, Governor Brown, I think it's Senate Bill 169, recently vetoed Senate Bill 169, which would have mandated that in our schools they imported the same old guidance, made them requirements, including the low preponderance of evidence. No, he realized, even Governor Brown realized, yeah, you can't dispense with due process in the name of trying to eliminate sexual assault on campus. And also, there isn't enough data to know whether or not these Title IX process is discriminatory versus protected categories, including Asians. They just don't have those types of data.
Well, in summary, do you think Title IX is a law that deserves to be overturned?
It's outdated, yes. Significantly modified, it's outdated, yes.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that conclusion. And my dear audience, I'm very thankful to the fact that Mr. Fink gives me the answer that I've been longing for. Let's take a very short moment out. When we come back, we have the last question they ask regarding that. If I may, I wonder, ask you about the the third bathroom issue. Binding laws on the campus, all right? Shall we? May I please?
Why not?
All right, good. All right, good. Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences. And finally, I have the chance to have a great friend, Mr. Keith Fink, Mr. Keith Fink was teaching in UCLA for quite some time, like 10 years, and he's also practicing laws. He deals with real estate commercial litigations also. And talking about laws today, I have accumulated lots of law questions, law-related questions that I would like to ask him. And I checked with him the possibility of asking him about the third bathroom laws. And I may go ahead, please. Right. I have a hard time, Mr. Fink, to understand why we should have the third bathroom on the campus, please.
Well, on that you're preaching to the choir. I mean, I view sex as a binary concept, so that's my own view. So I personally don't believe there is a requirement for a third bathroom. But if we're going to have decisions made on whether or not there should be a third bathroom, this is a legislative decision. This is a decision that should not be forced down the people's throats based upon some type of federal edict, some federal mandate. So the people in the state of California or the state of North Carolina or any state are free to decide differently, Jack, from apparently your and I view,
that means
and have a third
you don't
bathroom.
like those laws.
Correct. That's correct.
Oh, very good. And also, I mean, the question of confusing is that why would a legislator push something down to our throat, something that we do not want it, and we know we do not want it, and we do not, at least not necessarily want it?
Well,
why
if
would they do so?
If you're talking about, we live in the People's Republic of California. You thought you got out of the People's Republic of China. It's a lot worse here. The laws, as we're going over, the laws are steered against the employers. They're in favor of the employees. It's a very, very leftist. This is a very, very leftist, progressive state. This is the state that wants to shield those that are here illegally. We want this city to be a sanctuary city. The UC wants to be sanctuary campuses. There is no respect for the rule of law. So it doesn't shock me. And then and there's a complete intolerance, Jack, for you and I. If we oppose this and we want to express our opposition, we are pilloried. We are made to look as if we're intolerant. I actually had this issue with, there were some college Republicans at UCLA. They were in Santa Barbara. I think they happened to be members of the Broome Republicans, and they were opposing the transgender bathroom laws. And then their photo was going around, and immediately the students and the administration and the school paper, they jumped all over them. Jumped all over them for what? They were simply exercising their right to free expression. And shame on all of those that is a marketplace of ideas that the university is supposed to uphold that refuse to allow those with a differing point of view, with a conservative point of view, wouldn't allow them to expose that point of view. Now, I take that same position even if it was for somebody supporting transgender bathroom. I don't change my opinion on free speech just because I may happen to have a different own personal viewpoint.
Very good, very good. If you put everything together, though, do you seem to find why California would have those a strong position in being politically right? Being politically right has been a slogan for a long time already.
No, politically correct. Political correctness.
Political correctness, right? To be politically correct. So do you think that's the root of it?
Well, why is California or New York extremely liberal states? They are liberal states. I don't know what the genesis of that is. I mean, Hollywood, the dominance of Hollywood sure doesn't diminish the aspect of how to the left we are.
We're totally. Go ahead.
I don't know if I addressed your specific question.
Yeah, I understand. I have been recent years confused quite a lot about being politically correct, that slogan, and I want to find out why. So my question was that if you put all the laws together, you will find a culture that creates the laws, and the culture is the root of the political correctness. Am I right?
No, laws are supposed to reflect the will, the sentiment of the people in a certain geographic region. So the people in the state of Utah, okay, no doubt have a different view on issues than the people in Berkeley. Okay, so you can have different laws in different states and different jurisdictions. That's just the way that it runs in this country. We have a separation of powers. So I don't know if you're asking me more on why is it that people have different thoughts in the South than they do in the North. I don't know. That's now you're getting a little far out of my field of expertise as to why
Could be sometime if you give it a thought though, and if you were saying that what happens in California is caused by the radical left whatsoever. Now we're talking about federal. You're talking about the birthday cake. Remember the birthday cake? The legalization of the same-sex marriage, and for the bakery that's been fined to be whatever, convicted for not providing service to a same-sex couple.
Yeah, well, but your viewers may not know. Yeah, so people want Adam and Steve go into a bake shop and they want to have their wedding, and they want the cake, the bakers to have Adam and Steve. Okay, and the people are sincerely religious. Let's say they're Catholics, and doing that is antithetical to their religious beliefs. So yeah, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but yes, I happen to think that that's a violation of the religious freedom of those people that are running that bake shop. But yes, you're saying the contrary view is it's discriminatory in that they are not getting their cake. But that's actually wrong, because those Catholic bakers are happy to bake a cake. They just don't. They just will only bake the cake either with no Adam and Steve on it, or it has to be Adam and Eve. And to put Adam and Steve violates their basic religious tenets. So I don't even agree with the underlying legal rationale that's put forward that they are being prohibited from receiving a service. Okay, which is an important distinction to make, because people should not be in places of public accommodation prohibited from receiving a service. This was a very big problem in our country. As you know, in the 60s, blacks would come into a restaurant and they wouldn't be served because they were blacks. Okay,
exactly the same thing happens. For example, if you go to Home Depot, you go check the sign section, there is a sign saying that by law we resume the right to refuse service to anybody. What does that mean?
So well, they can have, look, you can have...
Those bakers can say, hey, by laws, we reserve the right to refuse service.
You are stretching the sign, you are stretching the legal coverage that sign has. So that sign cannot literally be taken as giving you a free pass to reserve right to anybody. You can't reserve... if let's say you have that sign at In-N-Out Burger, which is I was very excited when I passed In-N-Out Burger, and I have no stock in the company. Everybody likes In-N-Out Burger, so they can't. They may have that sign. They reserve right to serve any customer, but they can't because they see that I'm black, that I'm Chinese, or that I have a purple supporting gay sticker, whatever it is. Those are protected categories that you cannot refuse to refuse service on. So that sign to a certain extent is meaningless.
But as an owner, I decide not to give the service to whoever asks for Steve and Adam and Steve instead of Adam and Eve.
Well, okay. Well, the legal argument you're doing, I know. Well, but the legal argument here is you're refusing a service on the basis of sexual orientation. So, if there's a law that protects sexual orientation, then that action of yours may have triggered that law. Now, I'm saying is putting aside. How are you refusing a service? The service is baking a cake. You will bake them the cake.
All right.
But
I just don't want to carry the letters.
Yes.
Right.
Well, yes.
There's a between Adam and Eve, not Adam and Eve, something like that.
Yes.
Right. So, may this by law, may this baker owner just apply his freedom of expression?
Well, there's been legal arguments that the Religious Restoration Act, that there's certain provisions in the law that would allow for this based upon certain religious beliefs. I think that should be the law. I think the right outcome here is, yes, as long as you agree to bake the cake, you don't deny the basic service, then they haven't violated the law. They should not be required to violate, and these are important, these are not trivial, these are basic important religious tenets. It's not my religion, but I respect all religions.
Right?
The cake is baked, yes.
And then
Yes.
they say, I just can't write the letters.
That's it. It's a whole different story if they refused service to them, refused to give them any cake at all because of their sexual orientation.
Yeah, that is
that I wouldn't condone, and the law should come down on that.
Very good, very good. All right, my dear audience, we're a little over time, but I'm very happy I finally found somebody who can answer my Adam and Steve question. All right, thank you very much, my dear friends, and to Professor Fink. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very happy trip back to Macau, back to Hong Kong, back to Dalian, or whoever.
Zhuhai, our bordering, yes.
Very
And
good.
hope to be back
Thank you,
and
sir.
thank you
very
anytime.
Good.